Rosella, and I'm setting up a Jewish magazine for the UK. Isn't also the problem that everything is political? Because even those, these women in Maxime, I think they're military women. I mean, that's already like a political statement. Everything that is connected to Israel seems to have a political.
Let me say, you're right. We need to do something about it. One of my more interesting experiences, and I still work with this ministry, so they won't fire me. I mean, I'm sure foreign ministry will never work with me again after this, etc. But the economic mission to North America, I met with a Jewish leader, very well-known Jewish leader, I won't say his name, who I mentioned the spokesperson for the economic mission. Her name's Beth Belkin, hero. I mean, there are really good people within the system too, and I want to make that clear. She's been there at least 20 years. She'd kill me for saying it. But she does amazing work. When I pitched her on the business for the economic mission, again, represents the Ministry of Industry and Trade, the Ministry of Finance, our tagline, as I said, was invest in Israeli ingenuity. The subtext was, Israel is not a one-issue country. We are not a one-issue country. That line was developed by a guy named Ian McCabe, not Jewish, in case you're wondering, who was an expert in Indonesia and Malaysia and economic trade development. And that's how he looked at this political obsession, stepped back, and you know what? Israel's not a one-issue country. So I think on the economic side, the reason I mentioned Beth Belkin and this Jewish leader, one of the biggest Jewish leaders out there, not knowing even who she was, is that we really have to leverage where our strengths are. And the fact of the matter is, this gentleman, you work in technology, your name?
I did, Eliezer Israel.
Eliezer. I mean, one of our great selling points are the phenomenal technologies and services and names and the economic power that is emanating from this country and from the Technion and Weizmann and other places. It's just brilliant. The problem is, though, that, again, in my view, a lot of the people that are promoting each are pitching a different story, and then when just the good Israel is pitched, journalists don't want just good news. That's phony for them. That's not real for them. Then there's pushback to that because you're just pitching me good news. So it's we fall into various traps.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask.
Just introduce yourself and say what you're working on.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Moises Bassam. I'm working on Project Backend, which is
like the name.
Yeah, because it's to publish magazines online, a content management system which allows you to do things that you used to hire a programmer for.
Wonderful.
Such as run your own ad campaigns, run your own feeds, just add them to your magazine.
Can we be in touch? I'm working with a company right now that could use that.
Yeah,
everyone could, but that's
100%.
really apropos.
We'll trade information
Absolutely.
after this, but I wanted to ask specifically about a lot of your presentation had to do with the foreign ministries or Israeli government ministries. So, from the point of view of what we can do, how do you think that these things can be changed? I understand that you have that you're working in PR with Israel, or?
Well, I often work with various ministries. Let me just take what you said, which isn't about me, but the bigger point that you made, which is, how do we get involved?
Yeah, because
there's
we're
a
not
lot
in the government.
Is your company Israeli-based or going to be Israeli-based or any connection?
No, not really in any physical place.
Okay. Well, let me just say, assume a hypothetical. But let's say you made Aliyah and you're launching this company from Israel. Israeli companies have a lot of ambivalence about how to wrap the Kahol Levan. Most of them sort of want some, quote, healthy distance. Some of them identify but are resisting that. I think one of the cool things about today's age is if you would launch that company in Israel from Israel and be sort of deliberate that Israel is a cool place and that there's a reason why we're starting the company here and not in San Jose, California. So I think as people feel more comfortable with what our product is as a country, as a viral nation, as a virtual nation, that they want to identify more, that identification is a cool thing. I mean, that's from a business point of view, but I think certainly there's nothing preventing you right now from doing your own, let's say, video blog. You're from Central America?
Yeah.
Okay. From the Panama Jew, not Panama Jack, Panama Jew, about what it's like to be Jewish in Central America where there's how many synagogues left? Like 10?
Well, in Panama alone, there's about 5 at this point.
5.
There
Okay.
used to be like 2, but
Okay, so there's 5. But you know what I'm saying? That all of a sudden you were the provider of media. You distribute the media, and you make it creative, and you get an audience. And you get an audience that's specific, and that's, in the words of the book called Long Tail that I mentioned earlier, is niche. It's very niche. It's very niche. So you can do that, and you can be the expert in where you're at, and get people to tune in. So the power's with you. I believe there are a few other questions.
I just wanted to answer, you brought up the issue of Zionism, and I'll just state kind of
Yes, please.
my point for using it. The Republicans, in trying to defeat the Democrats, turned the term liberal into a bad word, and they'd repeat it constantly in a negative connotation. It was important for the Democratic Party to reclaim the term liberal for a very specific reason, I believe. There's certain things that are part of guiding philosophies that one needs to go, use the term, nasty term, balls out on, meaning that's just how it is. That's who you are, and you're not ashamed of it, and you're just going to go with it. And I think that when it comes to kind of saying, okay, we're going to see this term, which they're going to continue to use, and try to focus on something else, it's kind of like in a sense, you're running from the fight. So I think that there's a lot to be proud of in the term liberal, and I think there's a lot to be proud of in the term Zionism. So I would not cede either fight. Moreover, I think that there's a lot of intellectual, philosophical, and spiritual background that has been developed around the term, the concept, and the vision of Zionism, that if one would cede, one would give in to the negative connotations of Jewish collectivity, the negative idea of the establishment of the state, etc. So for me, it's just in a sense the same way in which, just to use an American example, I'm sure that in Europe there are a number of examples also that one can use, and elsewhere. To use the American example, I would not cede either term.
Okay, that is probably the most persuasive argument one could make in defense of the term. Somewhat, just a little critique.
Sure.
I mean, but by definition, it's somewhat defensive because the word puts us on defensive. Although I care a lot about words, I care more about ideas, and I think we have to promote the idea more than revamp the word. If we are going to revamp the word, we have to make it over in a hipper, cooler way. So if we get into the Z word, and we are Gen Z or whatever it is, or whatever sort of combination we put together, then it's cool. My problem with Zionism is it sounds preachy, it sounds like an ideologue, it sounds like people are being talked down to, and you better fucking open your book and learn about this history, and you better drink the Kool-Aid whether it tastes nasty or it doesn't taste nasty. So it's that's the problem I have for it. I just think it needs an update, and it's been so horribly abused and unfairly abused that I feel like we're digging the wrong way in an avalanche, and we should be digging that way, and we're going farther down. But I could be wrong. But if you're going to use it, then it's like, be proud. Be proud.
We can save Zion and drop Ism. Because actually Zion in the reggae culture, popular reggae culture, is very positive connotation.
That's true.
It's also popular in this culture too, in Israel, right?
Right, but it's once again.
Everyone knows what that term means? Everyone here yet?
My son said that.
Tzion.
No, just to tell a little joke. I was at Hebrew University in 1986. I was living in the dorms, and my Hebrew was less than proficient. I mean, I could put a sentence together, and I wanted to tell my roommate, who just got out of the Lebanon War, was my age, the first Lebanon War, and I wanted to tell him I was a Zionist. He said, "Lama bata lekan v'zeh." Tishma. Ani Zion. He laughed so hard he couldn't stop laughing. I said, "What did I say?" "No, אתה ציוני, אתה גam Zion."